Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth, everybody. It's Rod with Pow Group. It is Saturday, March 8th. Hope you're having a great weekend. And in this video, we're going to do another rapid fire news update, this time for the period March 1st to March 7th. And again, it's not a deep dive detail or anything like that. It's just a high level overview in case you missed it. Before we get to it, make sure to smash the like. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff. You'll be notified on any future videos. And also follow us over on X. Handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. A lot of news again this week as earnings season continued. I didn't mention this in the last video on rapid fire news because it came in just after I posted the video. I did it a little earlier last week. But this ruffled a few feathers. Canopy Growth establishes a new US $200 million at the market program, and they intend to use these net proceeds for the ATM, if any, for investments in businesses and or to fund any potential future acquisitions and for working capital and general corporate purposes. So there's potential for more acquisitions. I do think that, TerrAscend is a name. I think last time they said an update on it, they had around 13% ownership in TerrAscend. So that's a potential addition to the Canopy USA umbrella that they could potentially go after. But going to be a lot of competition. There's a lot of price compression. Some of these US MSOs are really starting to show some signs that there could be a lot of trouble brewing. And with over thousands of producers in Canada and likely thousands and thousands in the US, there's going to be tons of consolidation and mergers and acquisitions and just insolvencies, right? So a lot of these companies will be able to scoop up other companies for pennies on the dollar. And I've always been a believer that the reason why it's taking so long for excise tax reform in Canada and federal reform in the US is because they're trying to weed out, no pun intended, all of the smaller operators so that the big ones can win and, the big alcohol, tobacco can back, and it's even positive for LPs, right? Because the longer the US stalls, right, it's going to basically knock out all of those smaller players, and they want to make it sound like, we're giving people the equal opportunity. They do the same here in Canada as well, but we all know that it's not equal opportunity. We can't just go and tap the public markets and raise and dilute investors into oblivion. So that's my own thoughts and opinions, but curious to hear what everybody else has to say. I ran a poll on X and most people agreed with me. Also, Cresco Labs to report fourth quarter 2024 financial results on March 2nd, 2025. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Glass House has signed a new debt deal for $50 million. We also had Green Thumb opening their 12th Rise dispensary in Nevada. And this is its 102nd store nationwide. Moving right along, Rubicon Organics to buy MetaPharm Labs cultivation facility for $4.5 million. It's a 47,500 square foot indoor Hope facility in British Columbia, and it's equipped with advanced cultivation technology. Also, Colombian president calls on lawmakers to legalize MJ to combat cartel violence and the illicit market. So this is going to be a trend that we're going to continue to see, and even in the U.S. and the illicit market here in Canada, almost 7 years legal at the federal level, is still very much thriving. So we're starting to see it kind of come down with the price compression, and you used to see dealers go buy at the store and then resell it because it was cheaper to buy it at the store than it was on the street. So it's gonna get we're gonna eventually curb it, but it's still very, very much an issue here in Canada. And I do think that we're going to see there's actually some changes coming to Canada and the regulations here a little bit later in this video. Also, pro MJ legalization Tim Waltz says that he would certainly consider running for president in 2028. And he was running for VP alongside Kamala, and they wanted to federally legalize MJ and recreationally. So it's going to be a long 4 years, but we'll see what happens in 2028. Also, Curaleaf losses reach $1 billion over 5 years, with $216 million lost in 2024. So they reported their Q4 and full fiscal 2024, and they had about $1.34 billion in revenue for the year. And I just want to remind everybody that just because a company has a lot of losses doesn't mean that it's not investable. Doesn't mean that it definitely has risk. But you have to remember, Curaleaf's kind of like an LP. Well, they are, because they have Northern Green Canada. They purchased that business, so they're an operator in the US and in Canada, and they also have operations in Europe. So, that takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of capex, and you're dipping into their cash reserves, right? So, a lot of these other companies like Green Thumb, they only operate in 14 states in the US, right? So, again, Curaleaf probably operates in more countries than Green Thumb does states. Tilray does for sure. So, Tilray, Curaleaf, very, very similar. A lot of their business model just reminds me of one another. And I wouldn't be surprised actually in the future, long ways down the line, maybe, in 5 to 10 years or something crazy like that, after federal legalization in the US for sure, we could even maybe see a merger of a mega merger like Tilray and Curaleaf. I would absolutely welcome it. But Curaleaf said that they are going to pin US growth hopes on premium flower and hemp beverages. And I would agree with that. And then also just making it more economical. And I think like the average cost per ounce in the US is somewhere around like $250 to $300 US, which is just absolutely absurd. You can get an ounce here in Canada for like 100 US, and it's really good stuff, like, AAA or Quad A. So I would have to agree with that statement. Also, the UK could earn 1.5 billion pounds in annual revenue and savings by legalizing MJ report fines. So I know that Boris Jordan and Curaleaf are very bullish on the UK market as well. And yeah, this is just another one to fall in the dominoes that are set to fall. Right? We know Germany is big for Europe, and Switzerland's. There's some news coming with regards to that here in just a moment as well. But the UK will be a absolute massive market. Using MJ every day could help people quit opioids, new study indicates. And again, this just makes the big pharma, CEOs and executives lose sleep at night, right? Because MJ is completely undermining their profit, right? And again, I've said this many times. I used to work for a big pharmaceutical company, and they were fined billions of dollars in the opioid crisis, and all they could talk about was CBD and cannabinoids based medicine and cannabinoid, studies. That's all they could talk about for 2 years, and they were, working very much with Health Canada to get their license and everything that they needed to do that. You need to have a fence around the perimeter and cameras, etc. So there's a lot that goes into it, but you can definitely tell that they're threatened by it, and they're doing their best to slow it down as long as they can so that they can get their tentacles all over this industry. Also, Trump White House invites proposal on federal MJ legalization, activist says. So we could see some updates with regards to this. Again, every second word out of his mouth is blockchain or crypto or AI. So I'm not expecting, MJ to be at the top of the list, but we will get our time in the sun, right, in the spotlight eventually. But it's just not right now. And I do think that this new administration will see some reform, whether it be banking or rescheduling at the bare minimum. But I am hopeful that we'll see something under this new administration. Also, New Lake posts 26 million profit for 2024 and issues a shareholder dividend. And this is a REIT, but they were negatively impacted by tenant entering receivership. So that's not a great sign either. Tenants, people not being able to pay their bills for the facilities that they need. Like this is their very important asset, and they're struggling to pay the bills. So that's not a great sign. And to quote Boris Jordan as well, a lot of these MJ producers, right, these MSOs or LPs, he said he believes that MJ companies are going to be very high cash flowing businesses, and there's going to be a ton of dividends across the sector. He said Curaleaf would even be paying a dividend more than likely if it wasn't for 280E and the hundreds of millions of dollars going to that. So that punitive tax code. So yeah, it just goes to show you that, we're so early, but this industry, it's going to be massive. It's not going to be like crypto or blockchain, right? We're talking 50 to $100 trillion market there, like all the world's money essentially. So easily a 50 to $100 trillion market, whereas MJ will be lucky to even get to 1 trillion, right? MariMed also sees wholesale growth from edibles as it cuts losses in 2024. So they reported their Q4 and full fiscal 2024 as well. You can check that out if you're interested. Pre-rolls close in on the top MJ sales spot in Canada. And I would have to agree. I pretty much only buy pre-rolls now, and it's just so convenient. I like the Redecan Readies, the hemped ones. They have hemp papers. The Space Age cake is absolutely amazing. They burn really well. Also, the pre-roll blunties from Redecan. Oh my God, they're so good. And it's like $10 Canadian or $11 Canadian. for 4 of them. And yeah, those are pretty much my go-tos now. But I am drinking a lot more of the beverages. The new Dr. Kush by XMG and Tilray. Oh my God, it's amazing. They also have a zero sugar option. It was a little surprised that they had aspartame in it, but they have one with cane sugar as well. But there's like 38 grams of sugar in the one with cane sugar, but you have the zero option as well. And I couldn't believe how good the Dr. Kush. It tastes like Dr. Pepper. I swear to God, it's identical. I might even argue that it's better. And I like the 0 calorie one. Well, A, because it's 0 calories, and B, it actually tastes smoother. And it was really, really good. I couldn't believe it, to be honest with you. But beverages, they're still a very small segment. I think it's going to be huge, but pre-rolls are definitely very, very popular at the moment here in Canada. Also, Ayr Wellness takes $94 million hit on Florida as losses widen to $362 million. And they went deeper into the red while leadership restructures and hunts for a permanent CEO. So they currently have an interim CEO, Stephen Cohen, who is on the board of Tilray, actually. And that might be a signal that, he might be looking to beyond the AYR opportunity into other things. Some are speculating that we could see a merger or something like that between Tilray and AYR, and I posted a video about that. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's just him kind of looking beyond AYR and planning for the next endeavor, because it looks like, yeah, this company's in dire straits, to be honest with you. I'd be very, very cautious. They have barely any growth and rising debt. There's going to be a lot of competition from from other operators and price compression. So yeah, it's not looking good here for AYR. And they cut their Illinois operations loose and they doubled down on Florida. I think that's probably a wise move. But as we know, there's a lot of other operators in Florida, and one that comes to name is Trulieve, right? They absolutely are dominating that market. So we'll see what happens, but I would just recommend a lot of caution with regards to AYR and some of these US MSOs. Also, Canada expected to introduce a raft of new changes to MJ regulations. This was by the Business of MJ. If you haven't seen this, you can check it out. I highly encourage you to check it out. There's basically just kind of TLDR. They're going to be allowing transparent packaging, enabling customers to view products before purchasing for the first time, and then multi-packs, additional colors, and labeling is going to be a little bit more relaxed. So those are pretty much. There's also some changes to cultivators and nurseries and things like that. But again, you can check out that full article. They didn't mention anything about excise tax. I don't think that we'll get anything on that anytime soon. I think it's going to be a little while yet, maybe a year or two. But it's more than likely going to come around the same time that we get reform in the U.S., right? Once 280E goes away in the U.S., I think that's a good time where we could see excise tax improved as well here in Canada. But I always said that I really do believe that before we get any major reform in the U.S., they're going to want to do banking first so that you can get the Wall Street banks and hedge funds and institutions positioned first before they unleash the shackles, right? Think of your JP Morgans, your Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanleys of the world, right? Nothing in the world happens without them. Also, MJ producer Organogram closes final tranche of the 124.6 million funding from British American Tobacco. So BAT. But yeah, overall, very bullish on Organogram long term as well. Jushi. This is another company that's not looking too juicy at the moment. They're definitely showing some signs of caution here. I would probably not touch this with a 1,000-foot pole, to be completely honest. But they reported their fourth quarter and full fiscal 2024 earnings. If you haven't seen them, you can check them out. But they posted mixed results, and they launched aggressive dispensary expansion plan. So, operator plans to increase 40% in its retail presence by mid 2026, and this is just something that is completely different from Canada. A lot of the Canadian operators, that Canopy Growth, for example, I guess SNDL's vertical. They have seed to sale as well, so they're a producer and they also have retail locations. But there's just really not that many, and they're not just retail locations. They're the discount value buds model, similar to like a Canna Cabana and High Tide. But overall, most producers in Canada, they got out of retail. And it's kind of interesting to see that dynamic play out because in the US, all the producers are into retail. So I can't remember which CEO was it. I think it was, maybe Sebastian or something like that. But I think he said that he believed that, I think it was him, that said he believes that, producers who are getting into retail, he thinks that that's the wrong approach. And I would agree with that. And then later on, Canopy actually got out of retail. And, because there was just a lot of issues, right? Because there was people selling their products, right? You had other dispensaries and shops, could be private shops or whatever. And that's usually where you had most of the issue. And they would start a shop right next to one of their competitors, essentially. And this actually happened at Value Buds before. I think this was before SNDL really came into the mix. But yeah, they were boycotting Canopy products because of the fact that Canopy opened a store very close to Value Buds. So they were removing it off the shelves and selling it to staff, I think, for like 10% or something like that of what it cost, or like 20%. So basically fire selling it and boycotting it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out in the US. But I would agree. I think you should either pick one and focus on one or the other. Like a High Tide, for example, it's not a producer. It's just a retailer. I think, it's going to be interesting to see how that all unfolds, but curious to hear what everybody else has to say about that as well. Also, TerrAscend reports fourth quarter and full year 2024 financial results. If you haven't seen them, you can check them out. But a quick summary here from Green Market Report. They had shrinking annual loss despite revenue dip in 2024. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some sort of acquisition potentially by Canopy USA of TerrAscend. Because like I said, I think the last time they gave us an update, they said they had around 13% ownership. So Switzerland's 7,000 recreational MJ pilot participants show tendency towards lower risk consumption. Love to see that. And they announced that they're going to be positioning itself to become the first European country to launch a full commercial adult use MJ market. So love to see it. And again, this is just more signs that game theory is playing out, and the dominoes are falling and more will follow suit. Trulieve announces appointment of Ryan Blust as interim chief financial officer. So interim. So it looks like, maybe he could potentially become permanent, but as of right now, it's just an acting CFO, and we should expect potentially a permanent one to come in and succeed them. So hopefully better than the previous CFO that wrongly expensed $350,000 worth of expenses. That was definitely pretty shady. So we'll see what comes of the interim CFO and whether or not they end up searching for a more permanent one. Legalizing MJ was Justin Trudeau's greatest accomplishment poll of Canadian fines. I would agree with that. Probably not a whole lot of other great accomplishments. Personally, I can't stand politics. But yeah, I can't imagine being in politics either. I'm on the board of directors at my condo, and there's enough politics involved just with a condo. I couldn't imagine running a country. It would just be absolutely bananas. But yeah, this is the reason why I voted for him originally, and it was actually my first time ever voting. So I went out to vote for the first time in Canada in 2018. I guess I think it was 2017, and I voted in favor of it because I wanted to have this medicine, an amazing industry and plant, legalized. But personally, I just can't stand all politics, so I don't want to get political on this channel. But obviously, that was hands down, in my opinion, the best thing that he did for the country, and it's really just beginning. And he even said that it's time that we step up and support the industry. I think it was maybe 5.5 years, almost 6 years. I think it was around 5.5 years whenever he said that. But they still haven't really done anything. They're coming out with those other changes, like I said earlier in the video, but we really need to tackle the excise taxes and a few other things as well, but major one being, and maybe like limits and things like that. Like we definitely need 100 milligram gummies. I don't think it's necessary, but there's people who want it, and I can go buy, the like almost 100 proof alcohol, and I can buy as much of it as I want. So, it's a little silly whenever you think about it at the end of the day, but hopefully they can catch up to the industry and really start to support it. Government data shows that Canadians are consuming less alcohol as MJ sales climb. So Canadians are drinking less alcohol while spending more on MJ, according to a report by Statistics Canada. And this kind of reminded me of the $1.4 billion investment from Warren Buffett into Constellation Brands. If this is happening in Canada, imagine what's going to happen around the world. So a lot of people are thinking that, Constellation's investment that they received from Buffett is a testament to the MJ side of things, right? It's more of an MJ play versus an alcohol play. I would somewhat agree with that, and we could potentially even see Constellation Brands completely purchase Canopy Growth in the future as well, in my opinion. But more than likely would be after major reform in the U.S. Also, Hawaii Senate resolution calls on U.S. Congress to deschedule MJ and ensure banking access for MJ businesses. So again, just like I said, they're going to want to get banking done first, position the Wall Street banks so that they can get these U.S. MSOs uplisted to the NYSE and the NASDAQ, and then they'll go after an attempt to deschedule and to see major reform, in my opinion. But like I said, you got to get the Wall Street banks position first, right? It's just how the game works. All right, going into there, let me know what you think of this news. We'll continue the conversation in the comment section below. Once again, hope you're having a great weekend. Happy Saturday. It's Rod with Pow Group. Thanks again for joining us in the pursuit of wealth, and we'll catch you again on the next video.